Well, this is a treat to be here. I tell you, it came a bit of a surprise. I didn't know that EarthX 26 or EarthX generally was being held here, so I'm very honored to have come down. And we did not compare notes, but you're going to hear me echo some of the points that he raised generally. You heard parts of my background. More of my world has been in the corporate world. I worked for Elanco Products Company. Some of you might remember the product Treflan. And I was in Ohio and Minnesota with that, and then through marketing. And then after 19 years at Dow AgroSciences, which became Corteva, now they're disassembling it, went to Elanco Animal Health and did work in vet drugs, which is just, I'm so grateful for to have been allowed that experience. But my roots come from our large farms in Indiana, where my twin brother manages all the farms. It's Indiana, so it's corn, soy. We always had a swine finishing operation, occasionally a little bit of wheat, so not quite the diversity, Commissioner, that you all have down here, but still very proud. And so those are my roots, and it's from that I share some of these thoughts. So first of all, congratulations. Did I hear that this is TDA's 12th year working with EarthX? That's cool. And when I first read that, I thought, gosh, this is not usual for a lot of our members to be participating in this, but it makes perfect sense. Because I've always said exactly what you said. Farmers are the first environmentalists. And sometimes when I'm smug and quiet, I don't go very public on this, but all this wonderful talk, and it is good talk, and it's good programs about regenerative agriculture and sustainability, I just kind of shake my head and say, well, welcome to the 1960s and 70s, gang. This is what farmers have been doing for a long time. So I might come back and remind all of us about that. My ties with Texas go way, way back. It was the 1830s. In fact, Sid, I finally got to see, I've read a lot about the Alamo, but I finally got to see it. And I learned that on the very day that Davy Crockett and Sam Bowie and all the others were doing their work, my distant cousin was signing the Declaration of Independence for Mexico. Colin McKinney, which is how McKinney, Texas, and Collin County got its name. So one of you locals told me one time that there's no such thing as kissing cousins down here in Texas, so I guess I can't claim that. But I am very proud of that, and so I now have a parchment copy at our home of that document. At that time, he did not use a Y, so we took a long time. So anyway, I want to remind us all, we in farming, we in agriculture were, and still will be the first environmentalists. I think Sid talked about NASDA and who NASDA is. We are the third oldest ag group in DC. Seed Trade Association was first, Farm Bureau was second, and we were third. At least that's the best I have, and so it's been a long time that states have been represented. Now we're very careful not to go as staff to tell states what to do. We'll help them where they need. It's usually a state needing help and guidance and work and carrying loads and wishes to the federal government and now international governments. In fact, I have to tease Sid. You were talking about the no downtime. When we went to Kenya together, you know, I get back and collapse. I think I woke about 9 o'clock the next morning, and I get this text from Sid about 2 hours later. The son of a gun gets back from a week in Kenya, very, very, very busy. And where I'm sleeping, he's out roping some calf at 2.3 seconds, and I still have the video that you sent to prove it. So I think some of this not having downtime is self-inflicted, but okay, I love it. Okay, 2 or 3 things. This forum's goal of pursuing and passing down a healthy, sustainable world, which is in the flyer, is exactly what I believe we do. And frankly, it's a phrase that my dad and my grandfather passed on to my brothers and sister and me, and we live that. We have worked our whole life to try to take the farm and keep it better, make it better than it ever was before. So I'd like to do 3 things. First, a quick recap of where we've come from, at least in the USA and by extension, much of the world. Secondly, a quick look at agriculture today, but I'd like to then get into the future. And then I think Commissioner, we'll talk about some of those things on the panel. First, the past. I want to just remind people, and I know there are some who are not from the U.S., or at least not from the U.S. now, that I hope this resonates. First, when you look at the developments, let me remind you of some of the developments that we're still in the middle of and continuing on our own. How many of you remember Cyrus McCormick and the Reaper, or the Combine as we call it today? John Deere and his plow. And yes, we're very proud of that plow, but we don't use plows much anymore. We've moved on to much better conservation practices. How can we forget the creation of the land grant system, and with it the extension system? Last year we had 8 foreign ministers of agriculture find their way to the NASDA offices in DC. And you know what they want to ask about? Land grant systems, extension, and the National Ag Statistics Service. And we oftentimes forget those or take those for granted, and we cannot. So here in this state, you've got the joy of having Texas A&M, I think, is the primary land grant, but you've got Tech, you got Carleton, and others that are outstanding. The creation of USDA's ASCS. My grandfather was one of the very first involved there during the Roosevelt administration. The secretary then was a friend of his from Indiana. And so look what they did with the Dust Bowl and the stabilization of prices and programs. We cannot forget that. The development of hybrid seed corn. I was just given a gift by one of my colleagues. He's the CEO of the Sugar Beet Council. And he gave me a speech that Henry Wallace, who was the founder of Pioneer Hybrid Seeds, made when he was the Secretary of Agriculture before he ascended to the Vice Presidency of the United States. And you're not going to believe what it's about. It's about we've got to continue to find new and more markets for trade and export, and meanwhile take care of what we've got. Unbelievable. Big data and analytics, my gosh, it's screaming at us. And the opportunities, I think, are enormous to analyze more and more data so long as it's kept in the farmer's hands. And then right now, among other things, gene editing and CRISPR. And the opportunities are amazing. It's a wow factor. Let me move to number 2, the present. All systems are in place, I believe, for agriculture and innovation to proceed at a reasonable pace. We've got APHIS, the Animal Plant Health Inspection Service, the Patent and Trademark Office. All of those are in place, but we have some headwinds. We're now not the first to get these approved. We're more like 4th or 5th in the world. Brazil and Argentina have eclipsed us. And of course, China's always playing games on denying some of these things. For seeds with biotech traits and other approvals, but the process has slowed. Now, some of that, not a lot, was because of the DOGE reduction in force, etc. So we've got to keep supporting our USDA, and in some cases EPA, and in some cases FDA, to approve these products. And that's something that we are doing. You'll be pleased to know that after 12 years of working with FDA on the Food Safety Modernization Act, that's when states like Texas and the Texas Department of Ag inspect all produce and feed to make sure it's pathogen-free. It's a prevention, not a punitive, a prevention. For 12 years, we could not get FDA to understand, let's regulate, let's educate, then regulate. Let's tell the farmer what we're going to be looking for on their farm or in their packing shed. And we finally achieved breakthrough 3 years ago. And now it is a marvelous relationship. It's really going well. So well that they're looking for states to now do routine inspections at food manufacturing facilities. So it can be achieved. I'm here to say there are aspects of our federal government that, notwithstanding the loss of a lot of people, are, I think, turning the corner and doing well, and we're experiencing 2 of those. I'll also add, I tell the team this all the time, yes, we're not going to get into the White House very often. It's even difficult to see your sister, Brooke Rollins, occasionally because she's so busy. But we have unfettered access to the undersecretaries, the administrators, the deputy undersecretaries, and that's where the rubber really meets the road. Yeah, they got to ask Mother May I now and then, but we're working with all of them. I want to talk about conservation. One of the things I lost in a major way and missed in a major way when I was Undersecretary for Trade is that my world was trade outside of the U.S. When I was the director of ag, in this world it's commissioners, directors, and secretaries, basically the same title in many ways. I loved working with the conservation. We had a very large conservation department. Our relationships with Farm Bureau and Nature Conservancy and so many other groups was just stellar, and our work was very focused on the Lake Erie. Shallow, lots of algal blooms from phosphorus over the years, not so much from ag, but from washing machines when they had lots of phosphates in those detergents. And I loved it. Talk about restoring what God gave us and what came before us. We got to live that promise that my dad foisted upon us and my grandfather did. So, let me remind you, as I mentioned earlier, we've got no-till going hard and fast since 1996. That's what we've been since that time. We do not till the soil in the fall. We go straight in the spring. We're moving on our farms to strip till. We have found that sometimes that residue, say corn stalks that are left behind, make for the soil not to warm up. It's about 3 to 5 days delayed from somebody who's going to till it. Well, I don't want to till it. So strip till does not touch that strip. It's always going to be where the crop is. It does warm up, and we're finding good conservation practices as a result and additional yield. Cover crops, what can I say? Sometimes you can get them in, sometimes you can't, at least up there in Indiana, because winter's coming a little sooner than it does down here. We've got riparian buffers. We automatically went to 30, 40 feet of grassy waterways on each side of a creek to make sure that there's any runoff that's going to go. And most farmers do this. This was not something that was dictated to them. They did this because they wanted to do right by the soil and the water. Soil testing every other year, every 5 feet, so that we know whether or not we used every bit of the nutrients that we'd put on, N, P, and K, almost always. GPS systems. I remember when I ran a sprayer, and those booms can be pretty large, and you've got to be very careful when you're coming up on a creek to make sure you're not spraying into the water or anywhere near. Now GPS shuts them on, turns them off, so you don't even have that problem. It's magnificent, magnificent. Soil amendments. I'm bullish on some of these biologicals, and there's thousands of them out there. Now, I caution people not to get overpromised. It's a newer area. It's not the same as chemistry, which we know. Biologicals, I think, in many cases, could replace or supplement some of the products and the technologies we have. But I think sometime we're going to find a breakthrough on one that really does work and might replace some of the other products that we have. Talk about the nature of development. What a great thing. And then crop rotations and more. And again, I'll say these did not just come recently because some MAHA group said farmers have got to start adopting regenerative practices, or because General Mills and PepsiCo, great companies, their relationship with farmers is stellar. I love what they're doing. But this began before they started talking to farmers. And I want to make sure people are reminded of that. So let's pivot to the future. We're going to be seeing, in fact, you'll be hearing here shortly about continued growth in the area of controlled environment atmospheres. I would not call them greenhouses, but it's close. You'll get the idea. I think we've tried the vertical farms, and there are some that I think are still operating, but we might be moving back to something a little bit more akin to a greenhouse, except on many, many, many acres. More and more sophisticated machinery. I've seen the auto tractors working. Holy smokes. This spring and summer, we're going to be trying on our farm a robotic sprayer, which is the see and spray type sprayer. Sees a weed, shoots it, reduces pesticide use by sometimes 90%. Simply unbelievable. Data management. I was with my brother Tom. We're a dealer of the precision planting equipment. Maybe some of you are familiar with that. And I was up in the cab because I knew of it and I knew they'd been doing well with it. But on the iPad, that's the first pass planting spring of 2 years ago. We went through, and he has on the iPad, and when the seed is not placed just perfectly, it would show a little dot. And that first through, there were, a few hundred dots. The resolution of that problem was simple, just a little more downward pressure with the hydraulics. Next through, there were none. That translated to 20 bushel to the acre. Back in the day, we would have just found that the seed was there, looked pretty good, and off you go. And so what that allows is technology to help us with our issues. Simply unbelievable. New innovations for pest management. I talked about biologicals, but we cannot, until we find that better mousetrap, we cannot lose. That's why I'm a little disturbed that we're going to have such a protest at the Supreme Court coming up about glyphosate. My gosh, if that's taken away, we've really lost something. And then more. So I'm going to leave you with about 7 or 8 things that I believe are things that we in agriculture should remember. First, to anybody who's innovating, I beg them to take it to the farm early. Norman Borlaug, for which A&M has the Borlaug Institute, I know that. Julie Borlaug, his granddaughter, is a great friend of mine, always said, take it to the farmer. Take it to the farmer and take it to the farmer. There's such logic in that, and yet many do not. They've got that better mousetrap. They may not know farming, coming right out of Silicon Valley, oh, we got the better mousetrap. No. Take it to the farmer. Test it. If you're really smart, you'll go to a university, probably a land-grant university, and take it out to their test farms. So that's the first thing. The second thing is follow good cooperation models implemented by good companies. I just happen to believe that General Mills, PepsiCo, and Coca-Cola have really set the bar very high on that. They did not come in and be dictatorial. They said, what are your needs? Here's what we're looking for. And you know what they're looking for: crop rotation, no-till, cover crops, but some other things. Farmers worked with them, and now those farmers are making a premium because they've got a closed system with these companies. Now, not every company can do that, but boy, a lot can, and I think that's the way an entity should work with our beloved farmers. I've got to remind us at a time when a lot of universities are under attack. They seem to be more coastal universities, not so much the land grants, God bless them. But I've told many of them, I know that there's overhead that's got to be covered, but most people doing a grant can't pay 60% overhead and have only 40% go to the project at hand. And I think we're finding ways to work with that and yet still support our beloved land grant universities. Oh, I always remind people, particularly younger people, leadership classes like Texas TAL, the TAL program. They come in and visit with NASDA each year in the spring. And I beg them to get off of social media, particularly those that are just running rampant, don't know what they're talking about, and these Aggies would know that because I don't think it's healthy. And I think we're seeing the reflection of that with more and more elimination of people at younger ages getting hooked on those things. Certainly my grandchildren have learned that lesson and have restrictions in place. I was going to say, if regular in nature, I want to just repeat what I said about the government agencies with whom we work. Now, maybe it's just because NASDA and its members are cooperators. We are co-regulators. Took a while for EPA to recognize that, but most of those rules that they pass, there's the law from the Congress, the regulations that EPA, USDA, and FDA, and most of those are handed straight to groups like the Texas Department of Ag. The rest of the world does not know that, and they're finding that out, and that's why so many countries, yeah, they usually got to make a stop sometime in D.C. They're coming straight to the states, and the benefits are enormous. When we took your colleague Dan, Commissioner, to Vietnam, a month later, grapefruit from Texas was approved for export. Brilliant. 2 more. We encourage people to do work with their state departments of ag on many fronts. It could be anything, but usually a state department of ag is knowledgeable about all their colleagues. When I was the director, I also was head of the ag economic development for the state. So we recruited a huge dairy processing plant up to Northeast Indiana. We were on our way to bring in a forage equipment company that is well noted around the world. And up until the very last minute, when they got a better offer from the original core headquarters, we were going to land them. And we won them over just because we could sit and talk about the farmers that use that equipment, what the engines are like in those things. We just talked their language. And I think the same goes for departments of ag like TDA, outstanding and the best first stop. Finally, we've got to keep appropriate, and I say respectful, pressure on Congress and our executive branch agencies. USDA, EPA, and FDA are our primary three. They get the hell beat out of them way too much. We don't need to be doing that. We've got a very positive professional relationship, but we've got to keep that up, because the programs that really help us keep a good earth, fulfill the goals of EarthX 2026 and 25 and 24 and so forth, really come from the funding and the programs that those groups lay out. And the good news, as I said again, they do listen to it. So I want to stop on that, because I'd rather get into the Q&A and the commentary. But just let me say thank you for walking down memory lane, talking a little bit about the past, the present, but the future for me. I am bullish, I'm bullish, I'm bullish. You like that phrase? Is that fitting in Texas? Yeah, very bullish on the future, and I think where we can go, and NASDA, we hope, is going to be a big part of that along the way. So, Commissioner, thank you so much for the invitation, and thank you all for being here.